Welcome to Circuit Clouts podcast. This is episode number 1. The commissioner is here with Lance and Glen.
Hello. Do we have to call you the commissioner?
I am the commissioner.
Okay. All right.
You don't have to, but that's my official podcast name.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, then absolutely, commissioner.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about the 1977 draft class, which was just revealed, and we've got how many dudes we have in the draft class this year. It's a big class, big draft pool, because 77 was an expansion year. About half of these players literally played 1 or 2 years in the majors and then faded away. So that's why there's so many guys.
78. Yeah, 78 players, it says.
78, and that's big. In the past, we've been around 50, I think, 45, something like that.
Yeah.
Does your expansion year hypothesis explain why the offensive players are so good? Like, if you look at this draft class compared with last year, Andre Dawson was the first position player taken last year. He was 6'7" ratings. Templeton, right? 6'2", something like that.
Yeah.
Now, 6'7" center field is still good. But, there are multiple guys. I think there's 5 or 6 guys with 8 contact, right? And, there's another 10 guys with 7 contact, right? It's incredibly deep draft.
Right. I think there's a couple things going on. One of them is, what the hell version were we using last time we played this silly game? OTP 15, right?
That's right.
So we're 5 versions ahead. So, every time we change to a new version, there's probably some changes in the way that players import.
That's right, yeah.
But I think expansion pitching definitely has to be. You got to figure some of these batters were just feasting on expansion pitching for his first couple of years. So I got 5 questions here. So we're gonna go through these one by one, and we're already kind of talking about the first one. Overall impressions of the draft pool. What strikes you as unique or different about this year's class? So obviously the most obvious thing is just the size of the pool. It's almost twice as big. What other things are different about this year's draft pool?
I think first impressions is one of the things is just how few really outstanding defensive players there are.
Yes.
There is a lot of guys who are at what I guess I would call average or below. I'm putting a 5 rating as average, just going on a 10 scale that they go on. There was essentially the only position that's deep defensively is second base. The rest of it is a lot of really average defensive players, which, for some GMs, some managers, defense means a lot. And so when you're not seeing that, it makes you kind of, makes you kind of wonder about where you're going to pick a guy when he may have some nice looking batting potential, but if he's always going to be a 5-corner outfielder, is that guy going to be worth going top 5 or top 10? Yeah,
no, that's definitely true. I don't know, Glenn, you had some thoughts on the draft class, right? On what was really different about this year.
Well, yeah, I'm just it's so good. I have a bunch of draft picks, and I just wish I had more. It is so good, and it's so deep. The top end is amazing, right? Page, Murray, arguably so. Maybe the pitching top end isn't that different than prior years, actually. But again, the offensive players, there are guys, and Lance was just mentioning, corner outfielders with crappy defense. But there are guys, corner outfielders with crappy defense, but they have 8 contact and 6 power, or 8 contact and 6 eye and 4 power. They're just some really, really good guys. My list of left fielders is 5 guys long, and they're all in any other draft they would be slam dunk first round picks, right?
Right.
But here you're I'll take that guy in the second round, no problem.
Yeah.
Well, you're basing this all.
There's even a guy. Sorry. I was gonna say there's even a guy Lance and I were talking about. Jeffrey Leonard, one of my favorite Giants.
Right.
He's a 7 contact, 7 power, but because he's not very well developed, he's young, he might be like a 3rd-round draft pick, but 7'7" last year would have been arguably the best position player in the draft, right? I mean, that's incredible to me. So, yeah, I can't have enough picks this year.
Yeah.
You're basing that all off of their potential, though, their potential rating, what they could become.
Yeah.
Based out of guys who are like, if you look at them, they're out of the box ratings. I mean, you still got 3 guys who are 8 contacts right out of the box, you know, which is crazy. I mean, to some degree, and it's like, yeah, it gets a little, it doesn't get as deep if you're going off of like, hey, I want to try to plug this guy in now for whatever reason. But yeah, I mean, if you go off of what these guys could become, like what their potential are, I mean, you're right. I mean, it gets. I mean, I'm trying to look at it right now and just kind of give a quick count. I mean, it's probably about 30 deep with guys with 7 or better contact. That's crazy.
Right.
You can get a guy possibly really deep in the draft. Particularly if people are going to be passing some dudes by again. If they're just real tied into what kind of defensive ratings they're going to have, because that's the one thing that's probably never going to go up. There's no potential for that to get better necessarily.
Right. So let's say, does that imply then, so we're into the second topic now. Let's talk about the top hitters, since that seems to be what we're gravitating towards. And obviously it's a very hitter heavy draft, in particular contacts, but some decent power hitters there. But yeah, I don't remember a draft where we had 3 dudes with current ratings at 8 contact. That's, again, if you're sorting on contact, you look at the list here, like half the top 20 dudes are left fielders, right? So does that imply that is there going to be like a reverse run on left fielders? In other words, does nobody touch a left fielder until the 2nd round because there's just so many of them?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that's right. It's tough. I mean, I think part of it's just going to be need based, and also, I mean, I don't know how the draft style of a lot of the people that are involved. So it's like, you just looking at a guy and going like, you're at number 5, let's say you're picking, and you're just like, no, this is the best guy available. He happens to play left field. I'm going to go ahead and take him because, he's going to be a masher, or, either now or pretty soon. Or are you just like, yeah, you're right. Like, I can wait till a number 20 pick, and I'm still probably going to get a guy who may not be as good, but, comparable. So why wait? Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question. Particularly, I mean, with how seemingly shallow the starting pitching pool is. Yeah. Like, I wonder if that's, if there's going to be a run on pitchers because people want to get them because they're not going to be available past the 1st round. And you're right. You might get to the 2nd round and be like, I got like, a half dozen good left fielders I can pick from.
Yeah, I mean, I think I posited this run on pitchers theory to both you guys separately. I mean, to me, again, the draft is so deep with offensive players. After the very, very top end guys, I think you just have to look around and based on scarcity, think to yourself, I got to get some arms because I can always come back later and grab, I don't know, the Hackman or Kemp or Henderson.
Or like Jim Norris. How about Jim Norris? The dude, I literally did not see this guy until just now.
Yeah.
He's a 7.27.
Yep.
Already.
Yep.
So basically, you draft that guy probably 3rd round or lower.
Yeah.
And potentially he's starting in right field for you.
Yeah. Right away. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's like, if I needed to replace Gene Klein's, like, Jim Norris would be like, yeah, okay, maybe not as good as defense, but like slot him in the right field and he starts right now. Yeah. Same batting, sort of potentials and stats right out of the box.
One thing to think about though is, and this also, I guess this just argues for taking left fielders or right fielders later, is that, dude, in the league, left field or just the corner outfield positions are deep anyway, right?
Yeah.
Everyone, or not. Yeah, I think it's safe to say everyone's got at least one thumping corner outfielder. So, And I think it's just a reflection of like we're playing in a 14-team league, and Major League Baseball at the time is bigger, right? So talent is way more concentrated, and so you've got already studs at every position, and so to clear that threshold, you've really got to get a guy who's exceptional, I think. And again, now some of these guys are exceptional, right? But like you're saying, Norris 7.27 fully cooked. Let's into the second round, you could see that guy last, right? Or even third round, right? So,
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. So to me, I guess so. Sorry, back to your original question. I would say pitcher scarcity sort of demands pitchers earlier after the very, very top end guys go, and then you can kind of have your pick of these other guys later. That would be my hypothesis. That'd be my theory anyway.
So let's talk a bit about non-outfielders, because speaking of depth, and Lance alluded to this earlier, like there's a bunch of second basemen this year, and looking around the league, there have been a lot of good second basemen in the last couple of drafts too, right?
Yep.
Willie Randolph comes to mind.
Yep.
Had Gantner, of course, he's not. He still needs to develop a bit, I guess, but
he's going to see playing time.
I mean, in this draft, we've got, if you're sorting on potential here, you've got Lou Whitaker, Bump Wills, Julio Cruz. All three of those guys are probably going to end up being starting second baseman. Cruz maybe not, but and then of course there's Trammell. We haven't talked about Trammell yet, but so this is, I was preparing for this. I was thinking of one question I might add. I was thinking of throwing at the end of the podcast, which is, who's the absolute worst guy in the draft? Funny thing is, when I sorted on current contact, and guess who's second from the bottom of the list? Lou Whitaker.
Right.
So he's simultaneously one of the best in terms of potential. He's one of those few defensive guys. He's an 8, second base.
Yep.
Looking at 7 contacts, 7 eyes, so this guy's going to have a solid OBP. But his rating's now 3.424. He's only 18. This guy's going to be cooking in the minors for 2-3 years, right?
Yep.
And there's no guarantee that he'll get up to those potential numbers. Exactly the same story for Trammell, right?
Yeah.
Except he's 17 years old. I mean, looks like he'll be 18 before opening day. But that guy, he probably won't even see playing time in AAA if you're looking at his ratings.
Yep.
This year, anyway. So where does that put a guy with like let's take Trammell, because he got an 8 contact and an 8 defense at shortstop. You would think that would put him at or near the very top, but not even 18 years old yet, and very low current ratings. So how do you guys assess a guy like that?
Dude, that's the $64,000 question, Jack. I mean, so both of those guys, Trammell and Whitaker, I put a box around them and I put them to the side on my draft list because, I mean, to your point, they're defensively dominant at the two of the 3 most important defensive positions in my mind. So, I mean, I value those guys so high, right? But I also value development. I will maybe say it differently. I'm also risk averse, I guess I would put it that way. And so I tend to want guys that are close to their potential, like we're current and rating, or current and potential, the gap between those two is small. But in this case, the gap is massive. So I think that's really, those are special cases that you have to be committed to say like, okay, I'm willing to take this pick, set it aside, and come back to it in 3 years. And maybe I'll have one of the best players in the league. But you really, you really don't know. And the payoff is, I guess let's put it this way, the payoff is uncertain and it's a long horizon, right?
Yeah.
So for that reason, it's a special case. You could draft him 1 or you could draft him 13, and I'd be happy either way, right?
Right.
I don't know, Lancey, what do you think, bro?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we talked about this a little bit too, and I think because it's such a long horizon, the idea of drafting him early in the first round means you're paying him a ton of money to try to get to that horizon.
Yep.
And, the other thing is, and I don't know how much, it's hard to really gauge with OOTP, like how much this stuff really has any effect on the development of a player. But, if you dig down into things like the personality of the players that you're drafting, Alan Trammell is listed as having a low work ethic and low intelligence. So you're also banking on him overcoming that to reach that full potential. And, because it's such a long way to go, like, to me, I'd be real adverse to picking someone like that and thinking that they're going to make it all the way to the horizon,
Yeah. So one thing I thought about on that is, and I think Lance and I, we did talk about this earlier, is because I don't think defensive ratings changed that much, if at all, right? It's like you're getting, one of the best defensive shortstops, or in the Whitaker case, one of the best defensive second basemen, full stop, right? So there's value in that. The question is, let's say low work ethic and he's far from his ratings. So what are you going to get? Let's assume he's not going to, even if he doesn't make, 8.66, he never gets to the 20. What could he get to, and what would you be happy with to go along with your potential Gold Glove shortstop? I guess that's another question, right?
Yeah, and are you willing to pay the dude $9 million for the 3 years that he's in the stuck in the minors? First round, that's $3 million for the number one pick. So it's a better proposition if he drops down lower in the first round or whatever. But still, you're paying the guy big money basically to cook in the minors. And again, he may not get there. I just thought of one way to actually assess this. If you think of it, got unrealized potential, kind of the difference between the potential and the current numbers. Trammell's at minus 15 for contact gap power and I, minus 15 points. So at any point over that 3 year period, some of those, he could get potential downgrades, whatever. There could be an injury. Maybe he gets frozen at like a 5.45 or something like that.
Yep.
And then you're screwed.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And again, it's like, how long are you willing to wait to find that out? First of all, and but the flip side of it is that he's also the only guy in the draft, at least position player wise, who has a 5-star potential, and like that might be enough for somebody to be like, I'm gonna roll the dice and like hope one day all of those 5 stars are gold.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it, but that's the thing. But just also, if you're thinking about that and you're drafting mid first round and you're like, my next pick is until mid second round. Is this guy going to be around? Like, you might just shoot that arrow in the sky and like see where it lands. Just take that guy and just like hope for the best.
So that's a good point actually, because right there, every team is at a different stage, right? So that's kind of a good point. If you're just starting a rebuild, maybe in that case, you think, well, I'm not going to compete for 2 or 3 years. So maybe I can afford this kind of deep value play, right? Where I invest this first rounder now. I kind of bank it. I just put him in AAA or AA or whatever my options are. And then I just sit on him for 2 years, and then I come back to him and I see where he's at. Is he still? He should still be defensively dominant. It's just whether or not, again, are you going to get 8.66 or are you going to get, what was Lance's example, 6.44, right? If it's 6.44, you probably are disappointed, right? Even though you have a superb defensive player, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That to me, that's the toughest question in the whole draft, basically.
Yeah. It is, and again, everything we're saying about Trammell applies to Whitaker, I think.
Yep.
Although Whitaker is ever so slightly more developed. He's about a year older, and he's, I think, about 1 point higher across the board. So maybe Whitaker's slightly less of a risk. He's also at second base, though, and as I was saying, I think there's a lot more depth at second base than there is at shortstop.
Yep.
To the point where I think in the next year or two, we're not going to be talking about second base as like a premium position anymore, in the sense of scarcity. Obviously, it's always going to be important in terms of defense, but in terms of the number of guys who are like studs at second base. You used to be able to count them on like 2 or 3 fingers, and now like every team's going to have one. So, what else was I going to say about Whitaker? Oh, yeah, but I think both these guys, they're like 401ks, right? You just buy them, you buy and hold, park the guy down in AAA, and then open him up in 3 years and see how he's doing. That's basically the approach with them.
Yeah, I think you feel a little more inclined with Whitaker because even if he doesn't fully bake all the way out, it's like you're looking at a guy who right now his potential is 3.5 stars versus the 5 that Trammell is showing. So you're like, if he only makes it to that 2.5 star, 3-star level, you're like, okay, that was all right, that was an okay pick. But you got a 5-star potential, and that guy ends up stuck at 2.5 stars. Like Glen said, you're probably pretty disappointed.
Yeah. You have buyer's remorse. Yeah, you probably have buyer's remorse. That's fair. Yeah.
All right. Well, sounds like Sean's got a lot to think about. Let's move on to. Well, you know what? Wait, we haven't really talked out completely the top hitters. There's one thing. So I want to talk about the top pitchers. I want to talk briefly about the top glove men. It's very briefly, it sounds like, because there just aren't that many. And then we're going to get to our top 5 lists, the top 5 picks. But let's talk a little bit more about the top hitters. Like, say you had a high first-round pick and you're looking for a bat. Like, which one of these guys is the most appealing? Like, if you're looking at, let's say you're looking at current ratings. Take to the opposite side of the long-term investment thing. Let's say you're looking for a bat you want to stick in your lineup right now.
Glenn, you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any secret, right? There's only. I mean, we've said that there's several guys with 8 contact, and we've said there's several guys with 7 power, but there's only 2 guys that have both of those things.
Yeah.
And so Page and Murray both have top-end potential talent. And
only one of those has 7i. The other one has 5i. So Mitchell, in those terms, Mitchell is jumping to the top of the. Basically, you sort on most things. Mitchell's right up there.
Yeah. So I think the difference or the distinction you're trying. Yeah. So the difference between the 2 then would be one guy can only play first base and one guy can only play left field. Maybe our rules allow for a positional change to right field, but you have basically a first baseman versus a corner outfielder. And the one thing I like about Murray is that he's a switch hitter.
Yeah.
But I mean, Mitchell's a lefty, which has advantages of its own. So maybe it's kind of down to your park at that point, right? I mean, So it's really down to like these kind of marginal differences, I would say. Because I mean, all else equal, I'm always going to choose the higher rated guy, even if it's just 1 point. But I do think those other factors like park effects or left-right switch, I think those things are worth something too. And certainly glove, and Page's glove is not good. But, dude, Page is also dominant on the base pass, right? So I think you put Page 1, Murray 2. But if I get Murray instead of Page, I'm not sad at all, right? Because I got a switch hitter who's 5 years younger. And that's why I'm under – I mean, right? I mean, so you have Murray under control for a long time, right?
Yeah. I mean, Murray, 19 years old. I think there's about a dozen dudes under 20. And I think the only 2 that are really like ready to play right off the bat are Murray and maybe Terry Poole.
Yep.
Who again is he's pretty well balanced across the board. Base running, defense is okay. Good gap power, good eye. He's pretty solid. And he's Canadian. Check that out.
Is that like Poole? Yeah, Poole's really good. Yeah.
So he's incredibly polite as well.
Yeah.
Nice. Brilliant.
That's why he has gap power, because he refuses to.
Exactly. He doesn't want to embarrass any pitchers.
He just stops at second base.
So what do you think, Lance? Where do you go after that, dude? I mean, the top 2 are obvious. I had the easy part. What do you think?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it also. I think part of it also depends on, like, team need, but I think at this point you definitely have to bring Soto into the mix because that guy's just not going to. I don't think he's going. He's not lasting past the first five because of the scarcity of maybe potential starting pitchers. That guy's got to go probably 3, 4, 5 somewhere in there. Which also then, because again, as we were talking about scarcity, does that set off alarm bells with people and you start seeing a run on starting pitchers? Maybe, potentially. And then you're also getting into do you want to play the long game? Do you want to roll the dice on a Trammell or a Whitaker? Or do you want that guy that's out of the box, plug and play, draft him, put him in the majors right now? I guess it really depends. So I guess it really depends on the human being involved, the GM involved. Again, it's I'd be adverse to taking Trammell. I mean, I'm sitting 4 right now. Glenn, you're sitting 3. Yep. I'd be adverse at Whitaker, there, but somebody else might not be, So that's what makes it tough. I mean, again, it's if we use the Glen Reed matrix, which is just add up the numbers for potential. I mean, if you were just going strictly by numbers, the next 2 guys after Page and Murray are really are Terry Poole, oddly enough, potential numbers, and Rance Mulliniks. Yeah. Both who if they reach their full potential are 35 out of 50. So it's that's not too bad. I mean, that's not looking too bad. I mean, that's actually that they rate out to actually be higher than Trammell and Whitaker. Strictly by just adding up the numbers. Obviously, maybe the value of playing an important middle infield position necessarily, but nonetheless, if you're just going to use that kind of addition matrix, those guys, could be attractive to somebody.
Yeah, I think Matt Mulliniks is a guy we didn't mention at all, but he's going to be. He's not even really a sleeper, but he's. I think he kind of hits that sweet spot between current ratings and youth, right? He's still a 19-year-old. You're looking at potential 8 contact, 7 eye, decent stealing, and again, he's not at a premium defense. I think you can live with a 5 at third base, right? He's not really going to set you back that much on defense, so. It's going to be really interesting to see where he goes. I think Mulliniks has to be in the first round discussion. Since you mentioned Soto, let's move over to pitchers then. I assume we're all in agreement. Soto is clearly should be the first pitcher drafted. I don't think there's much. The only guy with a better potential than him is Al Holland, but again, the reliever probably not going to go ahead of a starter like Soto, especially with 10 stamina, which is insane. Guy could pitch 350 innings a year or something like that eventually.
Yeah.
So, but beyond Soto, what next? Because there's a bunch of there's about 8 or 9 3-star guys here.
I mean, dude, I can get this is so friggin' simplistic. It's laughable. But my secret sauce is or my benchmark, let's put it that way, is 20, right? So can I get to 20 with the 3 ratings? So. Contact, power, and eye for hitters, and stuff, movement, and potential here, and control here. So can I get to 20? And most important of those is movement, because if I can take away home runs, I have other ways to manage those other things, right? Or movement and potential, but I can use gloves to take care of base hits. So that's why I'm willing to accept lower stuff, right? But if I get to 20, I'm happy. And if you look at this list, there's some guys here. Bannister, 6'7".
Yeah.
I mean, I would prefer an 8 or a 9 movement, but he gets to 20. He has good stamina, so I think Bannister has to be high on the pitcher list. I like Sorensen, right? That 3.89. So maybe here we have to say you got to look out for the 3.8, the 3 stuff. Is that too low? Is there too low a stuff number? Maybe that's a topic for a different podcast or a different discussion. But also Honeycutt, right? So there, I think there's just a lot, or maybe I shouldn't say a lot. There's a handful of potentially really good pitchers in the draft, or maybe there's one really good pitcher and there's a handful of good pitchers. That's kind of how I would break it down.
Then you got Bob Shirley. He heads up to 21.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess you wonder about that 5 stamina, like where's that going to put him?
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yes, that's a genius. Actually, yeah. So, dude, I'm glad you mentioned that because there's a lot of guys. So I have another box. So one of my boxes is Trammell Whitaker. My other box is guys with 4 and 5 stamina. Because those guys they're complicated. Like you don't know, do they have the stamina to go deep in a game? And if they don't have stamina to go deep in a game, then that means you're going to have to rely more on your pen. So now we're talking about your team construction really matters, right? The depth of your bullpen really matters. So yeah, I think that's a good point, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Shirley seems awesome,
Right.
but maybe he's not awesome. So I don't know. So that it really depends on what you're trying to do there and how your bullpen's constructed, I would say.
Yeah. There's another guy I was really excited about when I first was putting together the draft list before looking at any of the ratings, just purely on names. I think it was Eric who said something about the draft looking just on name recognition alone. It looked like a shallow draft, and I think he was right. He has a fair point. Think about the dudes we're talking about. Mitchell Page, like, I mean, this is not really a household name, right? Mitchell Page, or Steve Henderson, or some of these other dudes that are going to be tremendous hitters in our league. Not really household names. One guy who I was really surprised his ratings were so low is Jack Morris. The dude's a Hall of Famer, right? I think he's won close to 300 games in his career. 6.66 potential. He does have the 10 stamina, which is good, but he's only 2.5 star. I mean, that guy's probably going to almost definitely will fall into the second round. And potentially you're talking about maybe 4 or 5 other starters taken ahead of him.
Yeah, I would think. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So that I found surprising. Now let's shift gears to relievers here, because the one guy, it's the whole how early do you take a reliever question, and again, it's all context, right? Because you have Al Holland here, who's like head and shoulders above the rest of the class when it comes to relief pitching. 7.97. He's a 4.5 star potential, but again, his current ratings are 4.73, so he's got a ways to go. Like, how early do you take a chance on that guy, and how early do you justify a pick on a relief pitcher? I guess this question should be for Glenn, since you took Bruce Sutter with what was that? Is it the first overall pick?
Yes, that was the first overall pick, bro.
Yes.
Okay, so one thing Sutter is 7.88. So that sums to 23. That's the same as 7.97, right? I actually like this guy's mix better because his movement is by far his best stat.
So you're saying Al Holland is the next Bruce Sutter?
However, I also told you I'm super risk averse, and so Sutter was almost fully cooked when he came in, but Holland, you still have some cooking to do here. So. Number one, and number two, remember the context of the draft. We just said the last draft was pitifully weak in position players, right? So, whereas this draft is stacked. So it's hard for me to see Holland going like in the first half of the first round. Maybe he could be a late first round pick, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be trying to project where he goes
I think relief pitchers are, of all the positions, are really the hardest to predict, because you never know, the needs of the team, right? And I think in this guy's case, I think if he goes first round, let's say if he drops past the top 5, I think if he's taken 6th or lower, I think that's fair. I don't think you could fault anyone for. Who doesn't need like a dominant reliever, right? Literally every team in the league could use that guy, assuming he pans out.
To argue a little bit against that, you could also, draft Enrique Romo, who's a 7.87 now. He's cooked and ready to pitch, and like you don't have to wait for him to mature. And like you're talking 1 point difference between him and him and Holland, and you could. There's so much depth here in the relief pitching core. I mean, we got Glen picking 4 times in the first round. So, so I wouldn't put it past him that a relief pitcher would go. But it's like there was so much depth already. I mean,
Yeah.
Again, you got Willie Hernandez, 6'9", right out of the box, ready to pitch. So it's like if I'm looking at those guys, like I know again speaking, not speaking to Holland's potential, like potential, but it's like if I need to fill a hole in my bullpen now. Like I might be more inclined to somebody who's already fully cooked, who's adding up to a 21 instead of a 22, or 22 instead of a 23, and just like, God bless the person who does get Al Holland, but if I get Enrique Romo instead, I'm pretty happy.
One issue with Romo is check out his age. He's 28 years old, right? He's already like midway through his career, so. That definitely has to be a factor. You're basically getting 5 fewer years out of that guy.
Well, but I guess so. Depending on when Holland comes to fruition, when he actually meets his potential.
Yeah.
I don't think you're putting him 4.73 into your bullpen right now.
That's true.
So let's say it takes him 2-3 years to mature, then maybe you're getting 2 or 3 years less out of Enrique Romo than you are getting out of Al Holland.
Yeah, fair enough. If he even gets to that potential, that's true. Al Holland has one other thing going for him. His nickname is Mr. T. So. Pity the fool who gets drafted.
That's awesome.
I have no idea.
I don't know, man. I feel like the relief pitching is so deep that I think. I mean, it is 14 teams they got to pick, but I mean, I think, because again, you're looking at a scarcity of potentially, front of the rotation starting pitchers and just some real mashers and some real, just really great looking position players. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if we go through the whole first round and there's not a relief pitcher drafted.
I agree with that, dude. I think what happened is I talked to Tim earlier, and he talked me into drafting Al Holland. So I'm glad we had this conversation because otherwise I would have taken Al Holland like 9, and I would have been like,
going at number 9.
Yeah. Thanks. So you just saved me, Lancey. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at I mean, I think I did a tiny bit of math. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dudes, 8 relief pitchers who are 20 plus. Actually 20 over 21. So 21 or higher of those numbers when you just do the straight math matrix. There's 8 guys who have that potential, and then there's another probably a half a dozen at least who are at 20. So I mean, it's like that's a dozen or 14 good relief pitchers, if not studly relief pitchers in this draft. I mean, you're talking. You could be picking. You could have one pick in the 3rd round, and you could potentially pick up a real nice relief pitcher out of this draft.
Yep, that puts even more of a premium on the starters, then, right? So you got Soto. You got what did we say? Bannister.
I mean, you got like Honeycutt, maybe Ed Whitson, possibly.
Whitson might be on the list.
Yeah, I got
Sorensen maybe if you can live with a three stuff.
And then you're looking at again these guys with the sort of Midland stamina like Shirley and Surum, who you're like, man,
dude, maybe call the doctor. I need my serum. I need my serum. Bro. I love that guy. Check this guy out, bro. His ratings are great, right? 488, dude. That's the magic elixir. But like you say, stamina of 5 though, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm really torn about these guys, and I guess, maybe I'll do some more research on that. I mean, do we have examples? I think we came up with Gogolewski. I don't remember what team he plays for anymore, but I think we came up with Gogolewski as a guy who had like a 4 or 5 stamina, been in the league for a while, who also had good ratings, right? Like ratings similar to this, like a 4.88 or 4.97, something like that.
Gogolewski is on the Manhattan Gray Sox, threw a wild pitch in the playoffs that in like extra innings that cost a game.
Oh, well, there you go.
I think it might have been the World Series, actually. So
should have never been drafted then.
Exactly. So he's a buster. Yeah.
So there's your comp right there.
So, but do you have his stats? Can you see like how many, like what's his average innings per start? Do you have that?
Gogolewski, he's a stamina of 4. Last year he pitched. Let's see, he started Actually, he didn't pitch a lot last year, but in 75, he had 22 starts at 136 innings.
A little more than 5. Yeah, somewhere 5.5.
innings. That's not bad. I think 4 or 5 stamina. It sounds horrible. It sounds like they can only go like 4 innings, but I really think 4 stamina means you can go like 6 innings. Assuming
And
you're
a
not.
good start.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, in the context of with a lot of relievers, right? So this is important though, right? If you have a lot of good relievers either already on your team or you can grab some, well then all of a sudden 4 or 5 stamina doesn't matter that much because you have studs that can close out the last 3 innings, right?
Right.
So maybe these guys are more viable in that scenario. Now I'm talking myself into Now I'm talking myself into these guys.
I think you can't go wrong with Mr. T. I think that's.
The moral of the story is take Al Holland number 1. That's what I've taken away from this whole
I don't know. Lance is talking me to Romo. I'm kind of liking that Romo guy.
Yeah, it's actually spelled TEA, so it's Mr. T. So
that's not nearly as good.
Yeah, you should stop at 4 o'clock every day and drink tea. So
that changes everything.
Yep.
Okay, so let's move on to the last question. Top 5 lists. All right, so let's say so rules of the road here. Let's ignore the actual teams.
Okay, well, dude, you go first because you're the impartial.
Who, me?
You're not impartial. Yeah.
All right. I did not actually write this down and prepare.
All right then.
Yeah.
Then
I don't have a top 5 list either. But, no, I don't. I mean, I have a list. I didn't necessarily go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I kind of made a list of the.
All right, here we go. Are you ready?
Go.
Yeah.
I'll start it off. I'm gonna, despite everything we're saying. Okay, Soto has got to be in there. Just because easily the best starting pitcher in a pretty shallow pool. I'm thinking he's the only pitcher of the top 5. We already talked about Murray and Page, both those guys for sure. I'm gonna go with Trammell, despite everything we're saying, because I think if you're playing the long game, how many 5-star potential guys are there in the league? I think that's you're taking a risk on the guy, but even if he only pans out to 80% of that, he's still a 4-star dude. So I put Trammell in the top 5. And then the 5th guy, God, this is where it gets really hard. I'm almost inclined to put Molinix up there just because not a lot of depth at third base, I don't think, especially compared to left field. So there you go. What did I say? Molinix, Trammell, Murray, Page, and Soto.
That's good. I mean, that's hard to argue with that, bro.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to argue with that?
No, we're supposed to come up with your own list.
Oh. In that case, I'm in trouble.
One of you has to put Willie Aikens on there.
Dude, that was actually, you can't, okay, hang on. That was the sleeper. You have to provide your sleeper pick. Who's your upset special pick? Like the guy who's going to provide tremendous value, like in the end of the 3rd round. So Aikens is one. We already talked about Aikens. Oh, then Hackman we talked about, right? I got another guy. There's a 3rd baseman whose name I don't remember right now, but he has like 7 contact and a 6-eye, or 7 contact and 6 power.
Hold on. You're talking potential?
Jim Morrison.
Morrison, dude. Yes, right.
Morrison,
on the storm.
Yeah, exactly. Get the Lizard King. Come on.
Yep.
Dude,
so there you go.
He's from Florida too. It might be the same guy.
Yes, exactly. I think he's buried in Paris or something. Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah.
Exactly. Just be prepared for some indecent exposure during games, but otherwise you'll be fine.
Brilliant.
I've got a sleeper too, but I'll let you guys do your top 5s first.
I can filibuster for you.
Ooh.
Okay, so again, I'm going to put Trammell and Whitaker. Like I say, so I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use 7 because I put Trammell and Whitaker off to the side. I could see them between 1 and, like I say, 13, right? But you cannot deny, as you say, 5-star potential, defensive stud, and adds to 20 at a premium position. Like that, those guys are supremely valuable in the right situation, right? And I don't think you can deny Page, Murray, Soto. Those are the 3 best guys in the draft, full stop, right? So there's 5, but I'm going to cheat. I'll give you Mullenix, so I agree with you there. And then did you mention Poole as one of your top 5, Terry Poole?
No.
Well, I put Terry Poole in the top 5.
Yeah, that's good.
And that could be actually, and so just to filibuster some more, Dude, that could be because in micro league, I swear, one of my teams, I had Terry Poole play center field, and he was like an 8-4, just like all. I mean, he was a phenomenal defensive stopper, great on the bases, and awesome leadoff hitter, right? So, so there you go. So it's a little bit of sentimental bozo effect.
That might have been the Buffalo Chips.
Yeah, dude, great callback to the Buffalo Chips, bro. All right, Lancey, what do you got?
Well, I mean, I think I'm with you, or both of you, with Page and Murray, and then Soto as well as top three. I mean, we're talking about me drafting or just anybody drafting. That's the thing, because I'm so the risk averse to Trammell just makes it real hard for me to slide him into a top five. I actually would probably. I'm probably going to be the only person who would do this, but I feel like I would probably take Whitaker somewhere in the top five.
Yeah.
And then, it's tough. I mean, I guess, I probably Mullenix, I think, and then there's, like you brought up a lot of the other guys who are potentially there, Terry Poole, and then someone who's willing to take a little bit of the risk. Trammell's definitely a possibility as well for that, one of those top five slots. Not from me, but from somebody else, and possibly.
Well, hang on now. You have Robin Yount, like probably 20-year-old Robin Yount, fully developed. So you're never in that, right? I mean, you're not even in the conversation, right?
No, I mean, but even if we were talking about even drafting in a vacuum, just because of like the risk possibility of him never reaching that potential, or not even getting there, not even being, not even making it to being, having a guy who ends up being stuck on 5.54 or something. I just, it's not worth it,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'm going to throw in a sleeper pick here, and I'm also going to touch on something we did not talk about, which we were supposed to. Top Gloveman. Lance mentioned at the beginning there's so few guys. I think there are maybe 7 guys who are rated at 7 or higher. Oh, no, that's not true. There's a bunch of second basemen. But there are Trammell is an 8. Whitaker is an 8.
Bump Wills.
And Bump Wills is a 7 at second base. But that gets to my sleeper pick, Julio Cruz, second baseman.
Yeah.
Short. He's a switch hitter. He's going to have 6 contacts, 6 eye. It's his potential. 10 speed, 10 stealing, 8 defense at second base. So I think that guy definitely. I don't think he slips in the top 5, but he's definitely first round material.
What does Cruz do? Sorry, what does he do for base running? You say that again?
Oddly, his base running is 4, but his speed and his stealing are 10.
Oh, 10-10. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right on.
So the dude's, you look at his real life stats, he had he stole 57 bases one year. It's not going to give you a huge on base percentage, but again, great glove, great speed.
Yep.
Bump Will's another guy who's actually.
That's my sleeper pick. He's my sleeper pick for sure.
Bump Wills gets you a little more offense for 1 point less on the defense, so it's probably a decent trade off. And he's already 7.6, 3.6, and he's also a switch hitter. And again, same comparable speed to Cruz, but better base running instincts.
And fully developed.
And more or less fully developed. Yeah, has the potential to go and the ability to not strike out, but in general, he's out of the box playing second base for you.
Yeah, and he's the son of Maury Wills.
Exactly. We brought that up with Glen yesterday. Yeah, Maury Wills.
All right. Well,
good times.
I think we'll wrap it up there. I think this is pretty successful if we figured out the technological hurdles. We've got a huge list of potential topics. I think now that we've got this sorted out, we can maybe press forward with some of those. But any parting thoughts or ideas before we wrap this up?
I don't know who's going to listen to it but us. But dude, A, it was a good time, and B, thanks for doing it. And dude, again, I just wish I had more picks. This is like the deepest draft I've ever seen, I think.
How many picks do you still have? A ton of picks, don't you?
I have 5 of the first 17, and I don't think I pick again until like 32, and I don't think I pick again after that. So, and I really think sorry, I'm kicking furniture. I think there's going to be incredible values in like this late second round, third round. I mean, to me, it's just Like you said, I could construct a totally viable major league bullpen out of third-round picks, bro. I mean, that's incredible.
Right. Yeah. So you picked a bad year to have 5 of the first 17 picks.
Exactly. It's like horrible planning. Yeah.
Picked a bad year to stop sniffing glue, pal.
Yep.
Thanks for doing this. It was a lot of fun, and I think it's going to be a real interesting draft. It's going to be a real rodeo to see what happens, because there's just there's just some wild cards in there that you just have no idea. I mean, we didn't we haven't even mentioned Holloway and the sort of Detroit connection, and how much Trammell must just be that holy grail, and I don't know that any of us would pick him first, but who knows?
Also, shout out to Lance, or maybe it's not Lance Parrish, but there's definitely a Parrish catcher in the draft who is another Tiger, right? So this is the year.
That is Lance Parrish. Yeah, exactly. Jack Morris and Whitaker. I mean, it's.
Don't forget Willie Hernandez.
Dude!
And another one of dominant relievers. Yeah. Definitely the year of the Tiger.
Yeah, they were great.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
All right. Push the button here and we'll turn this off. Thanks for doing this, and we'll.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll do this again sometime.